What would you say is the major achievement of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe? His major achievement and his true legacy. What should people remember him for?
Well, I think first of all, he was a great nationalist. He was one of those people who told Nigerians that it was possible to become independent. Our next door neighbor Ghana became independent before Nigeria, but then Ghana at the time and up until now is still a very small country. Ghana is not as big as, I don't think Ghana does not have the population of Lagos. And then Ghana does not have the land. In fact, we have states in Nigeria that are bigger than the whole of Ghana. So Ghana is not a very large, it's not a very large country, but then they got their independence anyways. And then the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, was a mentee to Zik, and that's a fact. So when you look at the Pan-Africanist ideologies that Kwame Nkrumah had, because then at the independence of Ghana, he made that popular speech when he said that Ghana might have got their independence, but until all of Africa is free, until not a territory in Africa is under colonial rule, Africa will never be truly free. So he showed people what was possible if we had a united Africa. It didn't matter
Mhm.
if you Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba. There is not another politician in this country who's been able to replicate what Zik did, which was unite Yorubas, Hausas, and Igbos in the pursuit of one thing, to gain our independence. And I think until we start having leaders who are able to do this, we'll never really have a country. And then, Zik fought for the unity of Nigeria. He was one of the great advocates for the One Nigeria agenda. And even when 3 million Igbo people were dead, his own brothers and sisters, he still stood with the idea of a One Nigeria. And that I think, are even higher accomplishments than him as the first indigenous governor general of Nigeria, or as the first president of Nigeria, or maybe even um, as one of the as one of our heroes who won us the independence. Because I think that national identity, that belief in a united country, that national outlook that he and the rest of his peers had, I think, were way, were way more powerful accomplishments than the rest of these. And then, there were a bunch of further things that could be considered accomplishments, but one that I really like because it's a cultural thingy was that Zeke's father was not royalty, but then Zeke would eventually become royalty at some point because then his people would bring him home, and then they would offer him one of the seats as one of the generals under the Obi of Onitsha. And it's a culture that he loved and embraced. And unlike many of the leaders we have today, Zeke lived out his life in Enugu. Zeke lived in Onsoka with his family,
Mhm.
and he died here in Enugu. He died at the University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital. And yes, he founded the University of Nigeria in 1960, and he founded that school and put it in Onsoka of all places. He could have put it in Onitsha, where he's from, which is like what our leaders do now. You create a school, you take it to your village and site it there. Yeah, but Zeke was not that kind of person. So
Because they believe in one Nigeria.
yes, under the administration, they did things wherever they felt it was best situated. So they had that school in Onsoka. He lived in Onsoka, and he died in UNTH. He did not go home to live in Onitsha. And as a matter of fact, he did not run off to the US or somewhere else to go and get treated when he was old and when he was sick, because I think he probably believed it was going to be all about Nigeria, all about living out his life here, all about dying here, and literally he gave everything, all of his life he gave to building a better Nigeria, and that I think is a very awesome thing he's done.
That's interesting. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Is there any other thing you would like to add to the conversation of this great individual, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe?
Well, I think Nnamdi Azikiwe was ahead of his time. He accomplished a lot. But then I think at a time as now, I believe we need another Zik. We need a new one who's going to make sacrifices for this country. We don't have politicians who are ready to make sacrifices for Nigeria, who are ready to put us side by side with other countries, our peers in the global scene. We don't have that. We have politicians who are selfish. We have politicians who want to enrich themselves, who are wicked. We have politicians who are not there for the people, but for themselves. And uh, that's now we're very good at holding public lectures and making speeches about our great leaders. And then we invite the corrupt leaders who are nothing like them to talk about them as though at some point we expect them to change. So one of the things that I might actually think of doing is taking some of the lessons I have learned from the life of a Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and maybe put that into maybe a program, a fellowship, a training, and then do it like every year. Bring young people, we'll talk about leadership, talk about what Nigeria needs, because the next generation of leaders we're going to have in this country, we must have to cultivate them now, in this age and time. If we don't start building the next leader, the next generation of Nigerian leaders today, would have to leave them to learn on their own or to observe what the politicians as we have them now are doing and somehow decide that that may be the way to go. And so far, that's how our leaders have emerged. And so far, we've seen that that has been pretty disastrous. So it would really be nice to, document some of those things. And then I'm really grateful to you for inviting me to this podcast, talk about Zeke. And I will actually be on the lookout. I'll go look for resources. I'll look for materials. I'll see what I can find on the man. And yes, I think Nigerians deserve to see. Nigerians deserve to know. Nigerians deserve to experience what the spirit and what the motivations of the man's equals, and find a way to make that into a lifestyle that will drive the next generation of leaders. That's the only way we can save this country. If not, we'll all be neighbors in Europe. And I think, yeah, that's going to happen already, because if they're swearing Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president of Nigeria, I can assure you, within the next 12 months, by May next year, nobody, like most of the young persons, will be gone. And when you think of the fact that the politicians who rule us now don't even have their children in Nigeria, their children don't live here, their children are carrying passports of different countries, and yet they are here destroying the country. So you see, they know
What a
what they
shame.
yes, they know they are creating a place that is not habitable, but it makes them rich, so they don't mind. So if Bola Ahmed Tinubu is sworn in, Europe is going to have more Nigerians coming in through every route possible. Would fly in, will walk in, will swim, will come by boat, will come by container. We're going to disappear. Would find we're going to disappear and appear in Europe and start lives from the scratch over there, because at some point it becomes obvious that there is no point to continuing to live if you're going to live in chains for the rest of your life. That was what Zeke fought, and that's what I hope the young people alive today in Nigeria can stand up to fight and to achieve a Nigeria we all can be proud of going into the future.
Thank you so much, my brother. I appreciate the time. I appreciate also the sharing, and this is actually pouring out your heart on this important personality in our history. I really appreciate it. I do. I think in a time like this, it's important that we really revisit the history of these individuals who have influenced us and shaped who we are. We really need to do this. Is the minimum that we can do to make
Mm.
sure that we do not forget. And like I continuously say, we should have this information at the at the tip of our finger, known strongly hard to get, because these are people that they were bigger than life. They were talking of the first president of Nigeria. We shouldn't find it difficult to find any type of information we want to find out about him. So anyway, we are not looking for the Nigerian government to do the job now. It is our job. Let's find anything we can about them and put it out there so that our children will not say the same thing without the information. So thank you so much. I appreciate the time. I appreciate also the sharing. I appreciate it, brother.
Welcome. I'm happy you invited me, and please invite me anytime.